The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 10th chapter. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." The Gospel of the Lord. What the lectionary leaves out preceding this passage is important for the context of this conversation. Prior to what was just read, Jesus and the disciples are headed to Jerusalem, the final trip. And Jesus, for a third time, tells the disciples what will happen to him. He'll be handed over, condemned, killed, and will rise again. That missing third prediction that Jesus makes of his death in Jerusalem is important to hear because it sets up why James and John ask the question that they do. Almost on cue, because the disciples continue to misinterpret Jesus' predictions, they contort what Jesus is saying and turn it into a power play. It's as if James and John only heard the part about Jesus being killed and immediately thought, who's going to run the group next? They immediately go to the hierarchy of the organization and who will be next in line. Now, I'm not sure whether James and John's question is bold and audacious or completely rude and disrespectful. Did they think they could trick Jesus into getting whatever they wanted? Did they think they found some secret loophole where if Jesus agrees to do it, then God is forced into keeping the promise? Now, we can think how silly that is, that James and John thought they could pull a fast one on Jesus. But are we so different? I've heard the Bible twisted and interpreted in not much different fashion. For example, in the book of James, it says, "The prayer of the righteous is powerful and effective." And if that's true, then if I'm righteous, if I'm good enough, then God will answer any prayer I come up with. Friends, that is not true. If your version of God is somehow bound to do what humans say, forced to give us what we want, then that's not God. God is not a cosmic vending machine. We are not created by a benevolent donor that judges how good we've been before answering prayers. I don't have to tell you that prayers are not always answered. It doesn't matter who is offering them. Sometimes our hopes and dreams are not possible, either because of reality or because they're not by God's design. Prayer is not some secret way of tricking God into giving you things that you desire, even if they're good and worthy things. Prayer is instead awareness of God's presence. Prayer is communion and communication with God, meaning it is as much about listening as it is asking. There is a subtle theology of glory in James and John's question. They are assuming that things are going up. Their prediction of the future does not necessarily match up with what Jesus is telling them. They are thinking about the elevation of things to come. The question that James and John ask, either boldly or rudely or both, is a request for the places of power, honor, and privilege. They are wanting to ascend to the top, to rise above the other disciples. They think that if they ask, they might just be righteous enough to receive it. In a sense, they've totally misread the situation. They have let the popularity of Jesus as a teacher and healer go to their heads. Jesus is being compared to one of the greats, like one of the prophets from old. His legacy is growing, and James and John want to secure their names in the story. James and John have got it in their minds that they can rise above the crowds, rise above each other, becoming renowned and recognized and revered. Their interpretation of things to come is based on a path to glory. Jesus' path is not the path of glory. It is tempered by the reality of the crucifixion. Jesus' theology is not based on glory. It is based on the cross. Jesus is moving in a downwardly mobile direction. Jesus is on the descent down to the cross, serving all through the offering of his life in mercy and love. Jesus tells James and John that the positions at the right and left hand are not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. The spots at the right and left of Jesus are not available. They've been set aside for someone else. Not only are they not available, but they also don't even look like what you think they look like. And with him, they crucified two bandits, one on his right and one on his left. What James and John thought they were requesting from Jesus turned out to be something very different. Jesus is creating an alternative community, a community not based on hierarchy and rising through the ranks to become the greatest. The community will be based on not only Jesus' teachings, but on the model of his very life and death. Jesus models this new community when he knelt to wash the disciples' feet the night before giving his last breath for the life of the world. This new alternative community is not based on power and privilege. Jesus' community is based on humility and the elevation of others above oneself. In Jesus' community, all are welcomed in the waters of baptism, and all you need are bread and wine to have the most extravagant feast. In Jesus' community, the places of honor at the right and left hand of Jesus are reserved for bandits and criminals. This is all in contrast to the ways of the world, where those that are rulers lord it over those under them, and the ones that rise to greatness act like tyrants over those that are beneath them. But it is not so among you, because you are an alternative community. You, church, are not structured in the same way as any other community. You are called to be different, to live and behave differently, not making decisions in a way that is aligned with the world. You are called to lay down your privilege, to lay aside the ways of the world and the power you hold over others. That is how you create the beloved community, grounded in love, and how you participate in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Amen.